Good evening. Welcome to our regularly scheduled meeting of the Board of Zoning Appeals. The BZA members are volunteers and receive no compensation. We are appointed by the City Commission for staggered 3-year terms. Under state statutes, the BZA hears 3 types of appeals. We hear dimensional appeals. We hear appeals of interpretations of rulings by building officials or other boards. And we hear use variances. Tonight we have 3 dimensional variance requests. In a dimensional or non-use variance, the appellant must show practical difficulty complying with the dimensional requirements of the ordinance. It requires 4 affirmative votes, and as I mentioned, all 3 tonight are that. We do have a full board, 7 members, so you must get 4 out of 7 for your variance to be approved. Our procedure is all comments are to be addressed to myself, the chair. Please wait to be recognized. City staff will make a presentation regarding the appeal and take questions from the board members. The appellant is then invited to present their case. Only one person will be allowed to speak on behalf of any particular appeal. I may grant exceptions for technical information, as if there's an architect or an engineer and we have a question, we may allow them to come up and comment on one of our questions. Members of the public are then invited to come forward by Zoom or in person, identify themselves, and provide comments to the board. The hearing is then closed, and motions from the board are entertained and acted upon. In all cases, this is not a popularity contest. Granting or denying a variance is based substantially on the appellant meeting their burden of proof. We may have some people on tonight by Zoom. If you are on by Zoom, we will use the raised hand feature. If you use the raised hand feature on Zoom, we will recognize you. We will unmute you. You can then tell us your name. You can tell us where you're Zooming from, and then you can provide your comments, and then we will mute you at the end of that opportunity to comment on a particular appeal. Can we please call the roll of the board members?
Ron Redding.
Here.
Dick Lilly.
Here.
Carl Cronin.
Here.
Eric Morgenroth.
Here.
Don Rogers.
Here.
Kevin Hart.
Here.
Jason Camister. No. John Miller.
Here.
And Susan Shackett, just so you know, she's the new alternate. She may be on Zoom. I don't see her name. I'm not sure because I know she's down in Florida. She's going to just listen in. But we do have a full board of 7.
Very good. I'll call the roll for the appeals. Do we have someone here for 1061 Forest? Thank you, Mr. Van Rock. Do we have someone here for appeal 2529 for 925 Larchley? Thank you. And do we have someone here for appeal 2530 for 36 977 Woodward? Very good, thank you. Are there any other correspondence? I do see one for the Woodward appeal. Any other correspondence?
No, that was it. Just the one.
There's the one for Larchley.
Oh, there's one for Larchley, too. Or was it Larchley and not Woodward?
It is largely.
Oh, I'm sorry, thank you, yes, for Larchley. And they received a copy of that?
Yes.
Yes, very good. Gentlemen, before you, you have the minutes from our last regularly scheduled meeting, which I believe was in October. Do we have any comments about that or a motion to approve the previous minutes?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Thank you. Do we have a second? We have a second. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Hearing none, we approve the minutes. I guess we will start with our first case.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I'm going to need to recuse myself for this first case. I have some involvement with this project.
Very good. Board members, any questions for Mr. Miller about his recusal? Seeing none, please.
Thank you.
So our first case is 2528, 1061 Forest. We'll wait for Mr. Miller to leave, and then still we need 4 out of 6 votes in this particular appeal for approval. The city, oh, I'm sorry. Mike?
Hello, Mike Moore, Assistant Building Official for the city, here to present PO number 25-28. The owner of the property known as 1061 Forest requests the following variances to construct an addition on the rear of the home. The proposed addition will be attached to the rear of the home and connected to the existing detached garage. Variance A, Chapter 126, Article 2, Section 2.06.2 of the zoning ordinance requires a minimum rear yard setback to be 30.00 feet. The existing is 52.50 feet. The proposed is 9.80 feet. Therefore, a variance of 20.20 feet is being requested. Variance B, Chapter 126, Article 4, Section 4.61A, a corner lot which has on its side street an abutting interior residential lot has a minimum setback from the street side equal to the minimum front setback for the zoning district in which such building is located. A covered porch and stairs is being proposed. The required setback is 29.50 feet. The proposed is 21.5 feet. Therefore, a variance of 8.00 feet is being requested. The existing home was built in 1905 and was relocated to this site in 1984. The applicant is requesting to construct an addition on the rear and sides of the home. Variances were granted in both 2021 and 2022, and the minutes are attached. Okay, so here's the existing house right here with the existing garage and the space between them. Okay? They would, oops, let me move this here. This page doesn't want to move. Why is it not moving here?
Maybe you can just zoom in.
I'm trying to move to a different page here.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Wait a second. Let me, hold on one second. I got to get out of this page here. Here. 1 second. Okay, there we go. Okay. Let me zoom in on here. Pull this up a little bit. Come on. Sorry about that. Okay. They're proposing to place an addition in between the house and the garage right here. So lining up on this side here and extending a little bit past here and putting this covered porch onto the side. You can see the dashed lines here where the setback lines would be. This is the rear setback line right here, which is right on, coincidentally on the line between the existing garage and new addition. And this is the required side yard, front yard setback off of Forest here. So that's their idea, is they want to put a two-story addition here, which expands over the garage back, and they would like to extend with a covered porch here into this setback.
So Mike, can you explain, the existing detached garage is allowed to be in its current position? Is that a existing non-conforming garage, or is it conforming currently?
It's conforming. It's allowed to be where it is.
But once it's attached to the home, it is not allowed to be there. It has to stay within the building envelope, correct?
Yes, it would make the rear setback would then have to be 30 for that, because it would be part of the principal residence.
And and as you mentioned, the building envelope, the expansion doesn't go beyond the building envelope, so the expansion would be allowed, but it wouldn't be allowed with attaching to the existing garage, because then the garage would then be non-conforming. If there was a gap of a foot between the two of them, would that be allowed, or is there a distance between?
There is a required distance of 10 feet between. And yes, and actually, right, the back of the house, you would have to be 10 feet from the existing garage to not require a variance for that portion.
And then the additional porch on the side, I'm not sure I understand, is there, I guess I can ask the appellant, but the meaning by which they think that, because that's outside the building envelope completely, correct?
Yeah, there's just very, very fine amounts of it that aren't. But yes, it's sticking 8 feet into the required yard, and because it's covered, it would be required, it would not be able to do that without a variance.
Okay, and if it weren't covered?
There is a formula for how far a porch can stick into a side yard, but it probably would still need some form of a variance there, yes.
Very good. Other questions for Mike? Please.
So is part of the requirement for the variances because the house is facing Forest and not, even though isn't the whole issue that the house is situated on the wrong facing street? It's like an Adams front yard and it's a
Not really, because otherwise the rear would be the adjacent lot to the north, and they're not 30 feet there. That would be, if that was the rear yard. If the front yard were forest and the rear yard would be the back, that wouldn't work, because you'd have to have 30 feet back behind, and so that's a side yard now.
Right, but I was looking at their existing non-conforming.
Right.
Not, because we had the same issue with the fence before, and they,
The issue with the fence was they put the fence up along in the front yard. It was a 6-foot fence, which was not allowed in the front yard. So the front yard is to the right. So the lot is longer than it is wide. So
Right.
the width, the lot is like true to any other lot from that regard.
okay.
Okay? So if the existing home with the rear, the only nonconformity on the home as it exists is that it actually is protruding about 7 inches to the south into the required side yard, which is a required front yard, due to the fact that the lot abuts up to an adjacent lot as opposed to rear to rear.
Okay, so my other question is then to the side yard, front yard porch, aren't porches allowed a 10-foot?
Into a front yard. That's a side yard. It's a side yard that has a front yard requirement. It's not, there's no 2 front yards here. There's only 1 front yard, and that is off of Adams. So this is a side yard off of Forest, but the distance, it has a front yard requirement.
Right, but and excuse me if I have this house confused with a different one, but isn't this house, it has an Adams front yard, but it's, the whole house is facing Forest, and it's always been a Forest?
No, the front door may be on Forest, but it's still, the front of the home is on Adams there.
Okay.
The front yard, the required front yard is on Adams.
It sounds like if it was reversed the way you're describing it, it would need more, it would be non-conforming
Correct.
if it was reversed the way you're describing it.
Right, that's the way I always thought it was, is that the house is always situated as a Adams address, even though it's always been situated facing Forest.
It's, the front yard is to the right, off of Forest, off of Adams. But it's required to have the distance of the average of the front yards down Forest, because it's a corner lot. All corner lots that have the rear abutting a side require that.
Right, right. Okay, okay.
I mean, if I could add to maybe clarify your question, with the width being narrower and the length, usually by the zoning, if it's narrower, is usually the front, so it's kind of based where the front comes off of Adams, and then the length of it, because otherwise the 30-foot rear yard setback wouldn't work. Then the width of the lot, then your side yard combined, so it's usually the narrow width is usually technically kind of the front, zoning-wise, the way it looks, the way it gets based on. Hopefully that clarifies that a little bit.
Yeah, but I thought when we did the fence variance, the whole discussion of it has an Adams address, but it's never faced Adams. It's always the front of the house has always been on Forest, and they needed the fence for other reasons. But it was always it was plotted one way and it was addressed a different way, and it's always been an issue.
Right, and I think.
And the house is being put up again as facing Forest and not.
Regarding the fence, yeah, because the front yard is, so is the 6-foot fence being in the front yard because of the height. If it was 3-foot fence, in the front yard,
Exactly.
then it would have been fine. And as far as the address, there's nothing that says you can't have an address off of a side street. We usually try not to because where does it go? But there is quite a bit in the city that does have the addresses on the side street, so that where adds a little bit more confusion to it. So hopefully that kind of clarifies it.
So the front yard is on the Adams side. That is the required front yard for zoning purposes.
That's where I think the discussion was, even though we have a Forest address.
Correct, that's correct.
Right.
All right, so the variance on the porch is because it's in the side yard. So the
That
front
is
yard-
correct.
The front yard rules don't apply here.
Okay.
Other questions for Mike?
Yeah, if the Forest, the side with the address on Forest was the front yard, would that porch be allowed?
Yes, if that were the front yard, that porch is like any other typical porch. It could extend actually another 2 feet forward. You're allowed to go 10 feet into the required yard, front yard only.
But to add to that, if that were the front yard, the setback would be further back, wouldn't it? It would not be the current distance.
Actually, no,
Oh, because
not to confuse the issue, the setback for the front would be what that setback is for the front, right
But
now.
it's a side with a front requirement.
That's correct. So the numbers are right, but the lot doesn't face that way because otherwise they would not have any depth for the rear.
But as Mr. Miller said, if this was the front of the house and they wanted that porch, and it does face the main road, they wouldn't need a variance.
That is correct, like the homes next door, it's the same thing.
Very good.
That's how.
Other questions for Mike?
Just
Please.
one more. We
I'm
talked
sorry.
about sort of if it was the front of the house, but actually other than the technical address, it is the front of the house in terms of where the front door is, the mailbox is, deliveries are.
Architecturally, I guess you would say that was the front of the house. It looks like the front of the house. It appears to be the front of the house.
Well, architecturally and for access to the house.
Yeah, sure, they had, because their garage comes off of there, and it would, yes. The
So-
appellant would speak better how they use, if they don't use the Adams side more, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions for the city? Seeing none, who's speaking on behalf of this appeal?
Good evening. John Van Broek. Address is 360 Hamilton in Birmingham, and I'm presenting for Kevin Hart Associates Architects. And as you can see during the discussion right here, it is confusing a bit, and I just wanted to clarify. The practical difficulty, as you can see, is having two front setbacks on this corner lot. So that's what's creating it's taking a lot of space out. So basically, there are few other options for expansion that would allow the sensible improvement of this home. A variance would be required in any direction that we attempt. This addition, thoughtfully placed between two existing structures, is clearly the most efficient and has the least impact on the neighborhood. Also wanted to reinforce the front setback off of Forest with that porch coming into it. It's the same situation as all the other homes to the west on Forest, so nothing changes there. It's just by definition of that being called a side setback, but basically requirement is to be a front setback, so. A little history on the property. It's a 1911 historical home. It was moved to its current location from Detroit in 1984. It was originally planned to be set up right on the Adams Road setback, but when the movers got there, they had several problems with the overhead wires and with equipment, and the house dropped where it is today. Also, there's a house at the northwest corner of Chestnut and Adams. It's the street directly south of Forest. Has an identical situation on the corner. Very similar condition as the Forest house. It's a new house that also needed BZA variances to build, and the address is 1055 Chestnut. And I've got a picture of this. I just wanted to point this out. It faces the same orientation as this house, being a corner lot. And let's see. This is the kind of the site plan. See how it's oriented, almost identical to this property as well.
I'm going to pass that around.
Sure.
Do you know if the lot dimensions and the setbacks are all the same?
I don't have that information. I just basically have that it's the street directly south. It's right on the corner, exactly the northwest corner lot, identical to this one. And it's the same setup.
Are you identifying the porch as the same setup, not the garage?
The porch, the garage, the length of the house, it facing Chestnut, just as this house faces Forest. Also, that porch, I believe in question, it was approved by the BZA previously, I think it was in April 2022, for the side yard setback encroachment. Just wanted to point that out.
Jeff, do you have that information, that this was previously approved?
There was a deck, it wasn't covered, that did come out that was approved. It should have been in the minutes. I know it was replacing the existing deck, and I think a little bit larger. And then I know with it being moved over, being covered, and then being covered, that becomes the structure.
So a similar, but not the exact same, okay?
Now, so there's the 25% distance between structures requirement. This meets this, even with the garage set up the way it is. We have, it meets the 25% distance between structures of the neighboring homes both ways. So it doesn't encroach that direction at all. It meets those requirements. And basically, it is the most logical and aesthetically harmonious way to put the addition is right between the two structures. I think that's pretty much I have.
So John, I know you're speaking on behalf of another architect that designed this, but, you know, in general, if you had a building envelope when you were designing a home, including the garage that was attached, you would stay within the building envelope.
It would be difficult with this property. As you can see, the building envelope, it's quite small.
Well, the image you just showed us of the comparable home had a two-car front entry garage.
But they needed some variances as well.
Right. But in general, your practice, and when you're designing something, you don't design outside the building envelope in general.
we try not to,
because you
of
know
course.
that
Yeah.
you have to stay within the
Yeah.
lines.
Yeah, like I said, for sure. But with this being, the practical difficulty here and the hardship is having those two front setbacks off of Forest and Adams. That restricts the building envelope quite a bit.
Well, they can have the existing garage as long as they don't connect it. It's just, once you connect it, it has to stay within the building envelope. So I think that's
Right, and the main part of the house does stay within it.
Right. Very good. Other questions for the appellant? Seeing none? Thank you. Online or in the audience, anyone that's not affiliated with this particular appeal that would like to comment on this appeal? Didn't we say we expected someone, or am I? Isn't this one we expect? Oh, that was largely we expect somebody. All right, seeing no public comment, board members. Please.
I would move to approve both A and B of 1061 Forest. And I believe that due to the exceptionally unique conditions of this lot and the structures that were actually relocated on it, that the whole front yard, side yard designation really sets up a serious difficulty in terms of approving this property in a very reasonable way. So I think the provisions of the zoning ordinance, if strictly applied, would unreasonably prevent the property owner from using the property in a very reasonable way. And again, this causes, I believe, an unnecessary hardship. And what's proposed here, I don't think, is really contrary to the spirit and purpose of the zoning ordinance. The front porch on the front of a house, which is in all respects the front, except for the designation of the address, is a pretty reasonable response and request, I think, in this condition. And I think it would result in substantial justice to the property owner, but also to the neighbors along the street. And again, this is an extremely unique condition. I don't think we're setting any precedent here. And for those reasons, I would move to approve and tie it to the plans as submitted.
So we have a motion to approve A and B. Do we have a second? Mr. Reddy, we have a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, I'll comment. I can't support the motion. I agree that the front porch or the porch on the side of the home, they are required to be set back the distance of a front setback. Their neighbors, if they're facing the same street, they'd be allowed to have a covered porch into that setback, being set back the same distance. If this were a side yard in its traditional standpoint or the traditional sense, it would not be 30 feet from the street, and so a side porch might be unreasonable. In this case, it has a front yard setback requirement, even though it's a side yard, so I think it's unreasonable to not allow them to have a porch comparable to their neighbors that isn't encroaching any closer to the street than any other front setback, even if it's on the side. With regard to the garage, you know, in Birmingham, you have a choice. There's one ordinance relative to a detached garage, which many of us have, and there's another one if it's attached to the home. I think that the need to expand the footprint and make the house bigger doesn't justify connecting to a garage that sits so far outside the envelope. If they designed this house from scratch and they did a garage, and it was attached to the home, it would never be able to be this close to the side yard. And so I do think we're setting a precedent. I think we tell people they have a choice for a detached garage, and it can be very close to the lot line, or we have an attached garage and it has to sit within the building envelope. And this muddies that water, and for that reason, I can't support that portion of the motion, so I can't support the motion. We have a motion to approve. Can we please call the roll?
Ron Miller,
Yes.
Ron Ready,
Yes.
Donald Rogers,
Yes.
Richard Lilly,
Yes.
Carl Kona,
No.
Eric Morgenroth.
No. Congratulations, you have your variance. Would you mind to tell Mr. Hardy can come back in? I know you're not involved in that particular one, Kevin, but they got their variance. Our next appeal is appeal number 25-29 for 925 Larchley.
Andrew Erickson here to present appeal number 2529. The owner of the property, known as 925 Larchley, requires the following variance to construct an addition to an existing home. Chapter 126, Article 2, Section 2.06.2 of the zoning ordinance requires that a minimum total combined side yard setback be 14 feet or 25% of the lot width, whichever is larger. The required is 18.75 feet. The proposed is 13.90 feet. Therefore, a variance of 4.85 feet is being requested. The applicant is seeking a variance to construct a second-story addition to the existing non-conforming home that was constructed in 1950. So if you look at the 5.9, this is where we're running into the issue with the variance. The other side's 8, so that gives us our 13.90. Is there any other questions?
No, I don't have any questions. Questions for, please, go ahead.
So if the house was not, because this is a non-conforming, existing non-conforming, and the addition was not done over the garage, but it's still on the part of on the building that is non-conforming, if they built into the conforming space, they would need a variance?
If they built to the edge of the home,
If they built to the edge of the conforming space and not over to the non-conforming area,
if
they
they
would...
built to the edge, yeah, if they built to the 10.7, the area in red, if they built to that line, it would conform.
Okay, so they would need, even though the building itself, as long as they made no changes to that part of the building. Okay, thank you.
Mr. Hart.
Yes, Mr. Erickson, if they do build along inset to where the setback would be a conforming setback, the roof below would need to be reframed and redone, and that in turn would also require a variance, would it not?
It would require a variance if they were going to
Yes.
rebuild the roof.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions for Andrew? Seeing none, who is speaking on behalf of this appeal? Please come on up. Please tell us your name and your address and why you believe this variance is justified.
All right. My name is Tamis Donaldson. I'm an architect in Royal Oak, Michigan. The address is 137 East Bloomfield Avenue, and I'm the architect for Castler Construction. And so I'm here to present this case. And so I would like to I have a couple of bullet points I thought I would go over. And the original house was built in 1950, and it was a ranch house with an attached garage. And so the house has been modified over the decades, but never a tear down, rather modified to meet a certain time period. In 2002, an addition occurred to enlarge the house. A second floor was added over the main house. The 2002 size is 3,301 square feet. The 2002 addition did not go over the breezeway or garage, though the modification to the house's side yard setbacks have been maintained. The street has changed a lot since 1950, with size and form of houses. The proposed 2025 addition over the breezeway is keeping with the size and form of the adjacent houses. The proposed size of the addition is 870 square feet, bringing the total square footage of 4,171 square feet. To each side of this house, 939 largely is 5,058 square feet, and then 883 is largely is 3,877 square feet. So it's kind of bracketing that square footage that's on that street right now. And the design of the addition is keeping with the second floor addition that happened in 2002 with the symmetrical elevation. And we are proposing keeping the existing garage to remain and proposing stacking over the existing garage to maintain that symmetrical design, as well as to have good practice construction over the sidewalls of the garage. The proposed second floor addition is set back from the original house. So in conclusion, the addition really ties into the existing neighborhood on both sides of the house by having the form more continuous across the front of the house. And it is following good practice of construction by stacking walls. So I can answer any questions you might have.
So my first question is, I'm looking at the second floor where you're adding a primary suite, you're adding the closet. I'm not sure if that large closet adjacent to the laundry room is part of the addition. I don't know that I see a delineation of where the old structure is and the new. But as I think a few of the board members said, if you pulled the space in 10 feet, since many of these rooms are very generous in size, is there a reason why you can't do that and keep this addition 10.75 feet from its existing spot so that a variance wouldn't be required?
Well, it came down to the form of the building. It was getting quite awkward by setting it back. So they're trying to keep symmetrical over the garage because the addition that happened in 2002 was symmetrical over the main house. So we're trying to maintain that kind of form and go symmetrical over the garage. So it was a little bit of space, but also it was a lot about the form of the house and how it's read on the street to be a continuous piece and not chopped up.
Right.
So it was about the design, really, as far as.
Can you talk about why you can't, or if you could, let's say, pull the side in 5 feet for a smaller variance request so that you were attempting to not encroach to the same degree as the garage? Is there a reason why you can't do that?
Well, again, it just gets into the being symmetrical. The garage is actually not very large, so if we're being symmetrical over the garage doors, then it offsets that symmetricalness over the garage doors.
Well, you also mentioned something about the practice of construction and using outside walls. Is that also a?
Yeah, we want to
basis?
stack over it. We don't want to offset that structure and get it into really comes convoluted. And then, as Andrew said, actually, if we had to change that roof line, then we're still doing a variance if we're changing the roof line of that 5-foot.
Existing
Margin.
garage's encroachment. Right, very good. Other questions for the appellant? Seeing none, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Online or in the audience, anybody that would like to speak on behalf of this particular appeal?
We have a hand.
Do you see it?
Yes.
I'm in a different view, let me switch. Multi-speaker. No, gallery. Oh, I see it now. Can you unmute her, please?
I'm trying to. Actually, I'm not.
She's unmuted right now.
She is? Mrs. Klein, can you hear us, or Miss Klein?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
I can hear you just fine. We saw your submission by email, and we know you wanted to speak, so if you could tell us your name, where you're zooming in from, and your home address, we'd love to hear your comments.
Okay, thank you. Donna Klein. I live at 930 Larchley, directly across the street, and that's where I'm zooming in from right now. And I was happy to hear the meeting start by saying this is not a popularity contest, because I'm not looking to make enemies. I like my new neighbor. I've met Paul. And I don't want to be the cranky old lady, but I'd like to express my opinion. I bought my house in 1995. I've been here for 30 years. I don't plan to move. The former resident, Sally, and Larry Erickson, two car designers, lived there for 29 years, and they had no hardship with the size of the house. Indeed, they did their beautiful addition in 2002 with the car design, mentality that they had, and were making a craftsman-style house rather than some like gigantic Bigfoot house. And I think it's just beautiful. I mentioned in my email, and I feel the same way, if you look across the street at my house, I didn't request a variance. I went over the garage, but the wall was not in compliance, the garage wall was not in compliance, and I chose not to request a variance to make a larger master suite up there, because I think that zoning laws are good for a reason. My street in particular, well, as with probably every street in Birmingham, since I've been here, we've been really devastated with construction. A new fence went up just a week or so ago. We're going to get another beautiful old house torn down, another one of these gigantic houses with peaks, and I see the neighbors are going to do those big peaks that every house has. It's our city is really being devastated, and my street is being devastated with all this new construction, losing our beautiful houses. So, since I didn't request a variance myself, I think that zoning exists for a reason, unless there's a hardship. I don't see the hardship here, and I'm going to be looking at more house and less sky, less trees, less natural space if this variance goes through. That's all I have to say, and it's nothing personal to my neighbors, Paul and Rick. It's how I feel about building and variances. That's it. Thanks for hearing me.
We appreciate your input, thank you. She's back on mute, correct? Yes, she is. Any other comments about this particular appeal in the audience or on Zoom? I don't see any other hand raises. We'll close public comment. Board members. Please, Mr. Hurt.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, with regard to 925 Larchley, case number 2529, I would like to make a motion to approve. I think that the appellant has done a very nice job of explaining the difficulties of this site, and has been very cognizant of not expanding the footprint. In fact, keeping exactly the same footprint over the encroachment area. We also are clear that the if the second-story addition was constructed within the setback, that the existing roof structure to the south would have to be torn out and reframed, and therefore require exactly the same variance that we see before us this evening. So with that in mind, I think that the substantial justice to the neighborhood is demonstrated by not increasing the footprint beyond what is required. And I think it's a very harmonious with the neighborhood. I think it keeps a house that has been there a long time. It keeps it viable and occupiable, and not one of these homes that may be slated for destruction later, for demolition. So with that in mind, I'd like to make sure that the motion is tied to the drawings that were submitted. And again, I'd like to submit a motion to approve.
We have a motion to approve. Do we have a second? We have a second. Thank you, sir. Any comments?
I had a
Please.
comment. Yeah, I would just like to say that while certainly appreciating the comments of the homeowner across the street, I would note that the house directly adjacent to the north and to the south of this house have two-story or a second story above the garage on both of those houses, which would cause this house to be much more in alignment with its neighbors. And again, to reiterate that this condition was really established back in 1950 when the house was built, and was slightly out of alignment at the time, even though at the time I'm sure it was built within the zoning restrictions that applied then. And I will also support the motion.
Any other comments? Seeing none, I'll also support the motion. I think that everything that was said in the motion is accurate, and I agree with. I'd also like to comment that the architect did point out the symmetry that's created by the mass going all the way to the edge, even if it is, we're not adding to the nonconformity, but staying within the existing nonconformity. If that second floor was pulled back almost 11 feet, the symmetry of the house and the proportions would look odd and wouldn't make sense for the justice to the homeowner and what he's trying to accomplish, they are trying to accomplish. So for that reason and the reasons in the motion, I'll support the motion. We have a motion to approve 2529. Can we please call the roll?
Kevin Hart,
Yes.
John Miller,
Yes.
Eric Morgenroth,
Yes.
Ron Ready,
Yes.
Donald Rogers,
Yes.
Richard Lilly,
Yes.
Carl Corna.
Yes.
Congratulations. You and your homeowner have their variance. Yes. Our last appeal for the evening is case number 25-30 for 36977 Woodward Avenue.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Summer Aldred Ahrens. I'm a city planner here at the City of Birmingham, and I'm here to present case number 25-30, 36977 Woodward Avenue. It'll be the new InvestWise building. This subject is currently on a vacant lot on the corner of Horton and Woodward. It is occasionally referred to by the applicant as 36999 Woodward Avenue. And this building is a construction of a new building completely for a 3-story commercial property with an interior floor plan of just over 4,000 square feet. So because of that, it's required a special land use permit as well. So this building went before the planning board on October 22nd, 2025. And the planning board moved to adopt and approve the plans with the criteria outlined in Article 7, Section 7.27 and 7.30 36 of the zoning ordinance, contingent on the review of the applicant receiving the necessary variances by the Board of Zoning Appeals. So that takes us here tonight. So the applicant is here for 2 variances. One of them being, according to Chapter 126, Article 2, Section 2.462 of the zoning ordinance, requires that the building facade be built to within 5 feet of the front lot line, or a minimum of 75% of the street frontage length. Now, the applicant has been going through the process of refining of their building, and so tonight, actually, their request is less intensive than what was originally proposed. So the proposed building facade occupies 96.10 feet, or 61.40 of the street frontage. Therefore, a variance of 13.6%, or 21.284 feet is requested. The second variance is pursuant to Chapter 126, Article 2, Section 4.46.4 of the zoning ordinance that requires the maximum building height to be no more than 42 feet and/or 4 stories. The proposed third-story greenhouse on the structure reaches to 45 feet, therefore a variance of 3 feet is requested. And I'll show you some images of the subject site. As you can see, this is the project location is Corton and Woodward here, and the applicant will go through this presentation in greater detail upon their conditions.
I'm sorry, so that, thought there was more to it. Sorry. So can you pull up the site plan so we can see, I have it on page 88.
Yeah.
Go to the 4th tab, sorry.
On here?
Yeah.
I think you just said. There we go. So can you kind of maybe zoom in and show us? So
Absolutely.
the ordinance would require this building to be approximately 20 feet, 21 feet wider than they're presenting. Where, if anywhere, because again, I'm looking at, so the frontage includes that little, maybe you can kind of circle it with your cursor, that area right there that is not deep enough to allow the structure to fit in that space. Is that
Yeah,
correct?
absolutely. So you'll see the lot has a little weird appendage off the bottom here. And this building currently is building all the way north up to the sidewalk lines. They're maximizing their frontage here. And to the south here, they have this little appendage down at the bottom that's practically useless from a building perspective, and that the applicant really does need a drive aisle off of Woodward here to make the lot usable, as an engineer would struggle to approve a left turn off of Corton into the property up here, as that would back up onto Woodward. So there is a requirement here that they'll need a necessity of this drive aisle, and it is pushed as far south as they can get. And obviously, as an engineer, they wouldn't approve a drive aisle this close to the intersection to the north of the property. So additionally, to meet their mandatory parking minimum, they need these valuable parking spaces here. So if, for example, they were able to shift this down just a few feet and do a more creative pathway into the back of the property, we'd be back here again for a variance for parking spaces. So that's why the property ends about where it does. They've really tried to maximize their space while still meeting their requirements.
So if they did some kind of portico, I don't know if that's the right term for what it would be on a commercial building, where you would drive through and under, they could get the width there. Do you think that would be allowed based on the setbacks?
That's a really good question. I think that it would be, absolutely. I think it's just partially a design, and then partially, again, with the parking, making sure that that's structurally sound to get it. That it's just such a small space down there on that southern end that it would really be a challenge from an architectural standpoint.
And another question, I'm not sure if you have the answer, but if we cut off that appendage and we pretend that it doesn't exist because it's a atypical part of the lot, Do you know how wide the building would have to be if we were measuring the frontage without that piece?
From the mathematics that I did very briefly before this meeting, we would not even need to have this conversation. I don't think they would be in need of a variance at all.
So if we didn't count that piece as part of the frontage, you don't believe they would require?
Correct. They've tried to maximize as much as they can. This is a pre-existing drive aisle on the site.
Very good. Questions for the city?
Chairman,
Please.
excuse me, what are we trying to accomplish with the first variance, variance A? What is the ordinance seeking to achieve here?
So currently, the building is too small for the frontage. So the variance is trying to allow the building to be the current size without stretching it further. If the building is stretched further, it's slightly bigger, then there would not be adequate access to the site.
I understand that piece of it. I guess what I'm driving at is.
What's the intent?
What is the intent of the ordinance?
Right.
The intent, I believe, is to maximize the building frontage and beautify the street in order to have the building take up the most amount of space along the frontage. That way that there's not parking in the front, large amounts of concrete space. It's really trying to make sure that Woodward there in that area is filled with building and not with other.
Would you consider 5 feet to be arbitrary? Was that an arbitrary figure? Is there reasoning for that?
When you say, 5 feet at the lot line, I believe, I mean, that's tough for me to say. I believe that it is there for the purpose of allowing pedestrian access to sites still, while also creating some room for landscaping. Yep.
So I think the intent is to eliminate, to have the cadence of buildings all be filling the lot and not leaving a lot of dead space in between the buildings. And I think a lot of the new zoning, like transitional zoning, pushes the building closer to the street so that as you walk down the street, as a walkable city, you're looking into the windows and you're not having a big gap between the building and the sidewalk. That's my assumption.
You said that way more beautifully than I did. So, yes, I agree with you wholeheartedly.
Very good.
Thank you.
Sure. Other questions? Yes.
Yes, the approach that comes off of Woodward Avenue, it's two-way, it's in and out, right?
Correct.
The depth of the parking spaces are 18 feet, and then there's 20 feet at the driveway, which is minimal. From that curb of the after you get the 20-foot drive-through, we're probably less than 5 feet from the north edge of that drive. There's not, I mean, if they eliminated these parking spaces and brought it down, we would have a parking issue, right?
Correct.
Okay. The Michigan Department of Transportation typically, they don't require it, but they suggest 24 feet. So this is a very, would you agree that this is a narrow driveway coming in for?
Yes, I would say that the applicant has done the most they can to minimize the drive aisle and to maximize the amount of frontage that the building could be built on.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Please, Mr. Miller.
Was there ever a building on this lot previously?
So about 60 years ago, there was a gas station.
Yep. Arco.
Yep. And that was the last building on this site. So there has not been a commercial building since then.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
This lot is like I don't know if it's a parallelogram, but it's not, it's askew on all sides, so I'm sure that
Correct.
creates challenges too.
Absolutely. It's a very unique, oddly shaped lot that they've had to piece together very carefully.
Very good. Any other questions for the city? Please.
And they've positioned the building as far north, I guess, towards Horton?
Yes, the building is bumped right up against the sidewalk there. And there is utility easements up there, so it is pushed as far north as it possibly can.
Can you tell us where you're measuring from, this 61 feet or whatever that dimension is? What is that measurement from? Are they taking the corner of that?
Yep.
It's just there?
It's this length here. So the length of the building is we're taking this length here versus this number here, which is the length from the corner of the building all the way down to the edge of the lot here.
So you're not measuring like a diagonal from corner to corner?
No, it's just the frontage.
Just the frontage, very good. Any other questions? Seeing none, who's speaking on behalf of this appeal?
Good evening, and thank you for your time. I'm Jeff Klatt with Krieger Klatt Architects, 400 East Lincoln in Royal Oak. I'm also here with our project team. We have, in the back right there, we have Dean Thurman and Brandon Moore of InvestWise as well. Summer, are you driving the bus?
I will be driving the bus.
Okay, perfect, thank you. I had a hard time during Planning Commission trying to figure that out. Excellent questions. Thank you, by the way, and Summer, thanks for all the excellent explanation. You make my job easy, so I appreciate that. But anyway, so we're requesting 2 variances this evening, as were just mentioned. So we do have a brief presentation. Before we jump into the practical difficulties or hardships, I'd like to just paint a little bit of a picture about the design of the building, if that's okay. So we do have a brief presentation, and I'll be quick. I know we're the last one on the agenda. So just a bit about InvestWise. So they are financial planners. They offer a host of services, retirement planning, investment strategy, and so forth. They are been in business since 1995, 30 years in business. Very community-oriented, white glove approach, curated approach. They're currently in Bloomfield Hills and looking to make Birmingham their home. So they really, this is a beautiful corner. They want to create a prominent structure in a legacy building, as Dean told me when he first came in the office. They want something that can be handed down to future leadership of their company. So trying to make something beautiful at this very prominent corner.
Can I have you pause for a second? I have one other question I didn't ask.
Absolutely.
The overall height with this glass, the structure, is it measured at the midpoint or is it measured to the peak?
It's measured to the peak.
Very good. Sorry. Please
Another one
continue.
points. So anyways, next slide, Summer, thank you. So Summer touched on this too. We're at the corner of Courtney and Woodward, again, the northern gateway to Birmingham, and our site is located there. So really, we're a 3-story office building, really 2 stories and a partial third, as you'll see later in the design. Overall square footage of about 9,300, give or take. Aerial view, looking to the south, you can see our corner there highlighted by the yellow. We have the new Gassow building to the south as well, just kind of pointing out where the property is. Site plan, this was touched upon earlier too, and all excellent points. I mean, this is a unique site, to say the least. We do have some funky geometry at the corner that really kind of handcuffed the placement of our drives. Dean would have loved to have stretched the building along Woodward all the way if we could. Same thing at Corton, but we really can't. So the building is, as you can see, is positioned, and it's really a balancing act. We have to meet parking requirements too. So right now we're positioned, the building, the usable square footage matches the parking requirements, which is hidden behind the building, concealed, and simple egress points. So on Corton, it is really a left turn in, left turn out. So it's too challenging to be a primary drive. So we really need this one, and MDOT has approved it as well. We've been back and forth with MDOT. So they have approved the location of the drive. So other challenges such as easement, which was mentioned earlier, really we have the building positioned where it can be. So floor plans, I'll just zip through these real quick, pretty straightforward. It's really an office building. First floor, second floor, partial third floor. Office spaces on the first floor, large welcoming lobby area. Second floor, more of the same. We have a beautiful 2-story lobby we're proposing at the lower left-hand corner where you see the 2. And then in the upper level, we have an open air, I want to call it a patio space overlooking Woodward. That's to the right-hand side where those 4 trees are. And then the rest of it is really just support space. And then at the very corner, we have our conservatory element, which we'll explain in a bit more detail too. So really, it's a partial 3rd story. And as I'll touch upon in future slides, the goal was, we're talking about height too, as one of our variances. We were strategic where we placed the bulk for that 3rd level. We tried to position it away from the street edge to kind of reduce the massing. So although we're asking for some help at the corner, we really could have pulled that frontage up all the way to Woodward, all the way to Court, and making the building feel taller. But we tried to reduce that to reduce the overall visual bulk. So that's why the building stepped back. And also we get a beautiful patio up there too to overlook Woodward. Exterior, again, we know this is a very prominent corner here, so just a few bullet points here about the design. Prominent corner, we want to do it justice. We want to create a building that's beautiful, that matches the other, the character of other beautiful buildings in Birmingham, but also is its own identity. Timeless appeal, timeless materials, you name it. We want it to stand the test of time and be beautiful today and tomorrow too. Inspiration, modern industrial, kind of speaks for themselves. You'll kind of see that in design too. This is the front of the building along Woodward. So again, this touches up, you see that corner entry element, the conservatory piece up in the right corner. So again, trying to create an anchor, a visual statement at that corner, similar to what Gassow has in their building, and even the building that's across Woodward to the east has a very similar, height structure. So trying to create something prominent, but not overdone. So again, timeless materials. We have 2 colors of brick as our primary material, a little bit of metal accents, a ton of glazing, beautiful muttons in the glass to kind of match that industrial vibe, the modern industrial vibe you're looking at. You can see the rooftop elements and the trees up there. So really a zen green space up there. These are just more images of the building, more of a perspective view along Woodward, a view coming from the south to the north. This is an aerial view, which you kind of see that massing of the building, that third level step. If you look at that white roof area, that's that upper level. Then you see those trees, so the building was pulled back a bit. Okay, so on to the variances, the important stuff. So variance request number 1, we spoke about this. This is related to the facade length. We were a bit inaccurate. We were showing the yellow highlighting along Court, but that's not really in question here. It's really the frontage along Woodward. So again, we were requesting a variance of 21.68 feet. And like I said, we would love to make the building longer. We just simply can't. So the next slide, this gets into our practical difficulty here. So if we kind of run the numbers on this, and as Mr. Hart mentioned, we have 18 feet for parking, 20 feet for a drive aisle. Then at that corner, that southernmost corner, we have about 3.6 feet to the drive aisle. Just a bit, so we don't want to jam the building up against the drive aisle, and it provides a little bit of a landscape bed to soften the building. That's an excellent point about 24 feet, but this business is really more appointment-based. They don't have a ton of traffic in the parking lot. They have their team, which is in the lot, and then they're appointment-based. So it's not a Indy 500 track in the parking lot. It's pretty straightforward with their parking needs. So we think that's suitable and ideal for this use. But the drive is critical. We need that drive along Woodward. This project wouldn't work with the drive out to Corton only, because you can't turn left in and it'd be a real nightmare. So that's the reason. We try to lengthen the building as much as we can, but we have those needs for that unique corner in the parking. This next slide really touches upon the practical difficulty related to that funky corner. So that's just showing, we already touched upon this, that red line at the bottom just shows that jog. If we push the drive down, we'd have to kind of loop back up anyways, and it wouldn't do us any justice. Okay, so variance request number 2, this is related to the height. So the yellow shading represents the area of encroachment right now. So again, we're looking for, it's 45 feet to the peak we're proposing, and 42 is allowable. So from a practical difficulty, let me just touch upon the purpose first. Sorry, Summer, this next slide is good. This next slide is good. So really the purpose of that tower, so if you can switch to the next one. The purpose is, as I mentioned before, that's the exterior view on the left that shows that the tower component, and this is an interior vision. So really it's a zen-like space, just a place for their team to retreat to, maybe a place to entertain guests. It's a little bit of a covered space leading out to the outdoor patio. But I like to call it, it's like modest prominence. We're trying to create something, a focal point at that corner, but not overdone. It's adding some height, but it's serving as a visual anchor, adding some height. But on the next slide, we'll show that from a design standpoint, we created a hip roof. If you look at a gable roof, it's definitely more prominent, right? If you look at the peak of that roof, there's more surface area, it's more visible. A hip roof kind of fades away, so it reduces the height. It's also glass versus metal or something heavier of a material. And then, as I mentioned earlier, we pulled that so it's like a trade-off in our opinion. We could have pulled that third floor space out to the edge, but that would have been bulky. That would have been 42 feet of parapet or additional office space up there, but it's just too tall. So by stepping it back, we think we meet the spirit of the ordinance. So we soften the building, we soften the massing, but we're asking for just a little bit of relief at that corner. Another practical difficulty associated with this is a building section or like a cake slice through that tower. If you're standing in the tower looking out to Woodward, this is what you'd see. So really, we can't really make the building any lower. And what I mean by that is floor-to-floor height. So we have floor 1, floor 2, then the rooftop level. So in our broker, Mike Falon of Newmark, can attest to this. These floor heights are fairly low, modest to low for a new modern office building. By the time if we have 15 feet floor to floor, by the time you factor in structural thickness, ductwork, finished ceiling height, we've got about a 10-foot ceiling, give or take, at each office space, each level. So it's not extravagant by any means. Then at the rooftop level, there's also pedestal paver systems to light a walk on that, so it adds thickness. So what we're saying is we generally have a 9-foot eave height at that level. So to get lower gets to be a bit more challenging. Next slide, please. So again, I know that the ordinance is looked at differently in this case, but when I look at the definition of height in the ordinance, it does state, and I think you mentioned that, Mr. Chair, that to a midpoint or gable, it's taken to the midpoint. So if we did the math from 45 to 39, that midpoint would be 42. And that's kind of right where we're at, is that 42-foot range. So can we comply in spirit, is what I'm trying to say. So this next slide kind of touches upon that too. This is a exterior view at that corner. So like I said, the very peak is at 45, eve is 39, the midpoint is 42. And it's just that small yellow area. But again, you're looking at that in a 2D view there when that roof is kind of receding back away from you. So it's, from a visual standpoint, it doesn't appear, it's the very peak. And then lastly, this is the aerial view of the rooftop plan. So what I was trying to point out here is just the very small percentage of the roof area. So the gray shading represents the covered space on that third level. That's the part that's stepped back. Like I said, that gray could have been pulled to the right closer to Woodward, but we stepped it back. And that red and yellow, that represents that conservatory piece at the corner. So overall, that square is 7.81% of the overall roof, and the non-conforming area is only 2.42% of the overall. So it's a very minimal piece. So I just wanted to bring that up. It's just, although when you look at that 2D drawing, it shows that it's high, but it's such a minimal component. And I believe that may be about it, maybe for conclusion. So conclusion, we're trying to create a beautiful legacy building at a very prominent corner. We're requesting minor relief from the ordinance to create subtle prominence in an elegant yet timeless manner. And then we feel the design meets the spirit of the ordinance from a height and frontage standpoint. And then we believe we kind of met in the middle by pulling that bulk back. We're asking for just a touch of relief at that glass piece. So that's our presentation, and we'd love to answer any questions that you have. So thank you for your time.
Thank you for your presentation. So I want to focus on the decorative element of this glass structure. So you're saying the side panels are 2 panels of glass that total 9 feet of height? Is that?
Design. We had 10 different models, and we explored the various pitches. So they kind of met to a point where even when you're standing down, like it's one thing here looking at this building. So they kind of met to a point where even when you're standing down, like it's one thing here looking at this building in a 2D aspect, but at street level looking up at it, with the way that roof diminishes, it's so slight. So we want to make sure we have a decent pitch to drain water, to drain snow, to give us a little bit of visual appeal too. That's what we're looking for. So a flat roof, we would then have to go to some type of skylight, and that skylight would need some kind of peak on it too. And I think it would feel more bulky because you'd then have a ceiling structure up there within a skylight. So, per conversations with conservatory, we don't have one selected yet. We had some brief discussions with them. Very expensive element, but, we were talking about pitches, and this seemed to be the sweet spot for that. So hopefully in a long-winded way, I tried to address your question.
Yeah, I just, I see this as a decorative element. I appreciate the decorative element. I just see that as purely wanting something that has an impact, and that impact exceeds the height requirement. And I feel like between the 9-foot walls on the side with the extra volume in the hip, you have an excessive amount of space for such a small structure that it seems want and not need, in my perspective. And so I have a challenge with that. I think a flat detail could work. I think some kind of more shallow pitch could work. I don't see, and I would have loved to have seen all these different pitch scenarios that you had looked at and ruled out. That would help me support the significance of this version only being the version that works. I just don't see that. I haven't been presented that, so it's hard for me to see. Is this space going to be heated and cooled?
It'll be conditioned, yes.
It'll be conditioned.
With the amount of glass it has to be, so that glass needs to be conditioned, so it won't steam up.
So when we think of every other building that comes in front of our board that has conditioned space, whether it be all glass, and this is obviously spectacular, we turn down a lot of other buildings because they've exceeded the maximum height, and this actually functions as well as decorative, but it obviously is a functional space, and I have a challenge with the height. I don't see the inability to have a version that would not require a variance personally. I don't have a huge issue with the site in terms of its width, based on what you've talked about, what we talked about before you came up. I think though that the lot has some challenges in its shape, in the driveway, and I think you've maximized width personally, so I don't have a challenge with that, but I do have a challenge with this piece of the variance request. Other questions? Please, Mr. Cronin.
The drawing you show here doesn't match what was given to us to look at. This looks like the peak is almost, is lower than, or at the same height as the roof structure that has the bathrooms and the stairwell and so forth in it. This looks almost 2 feet taller than the roof structure. Is there a different version that we're not seeing? This has a 28-foot third floor, yours has a 30-foot third floor. Yeah, see, this matches what we have.
The base plate height in that seems taller than the rest of that floor. It could be the angle that you've drawn, the perspective maybe that you've drawn it at.
No, is that in the packet somewhere? Okay.
So do you see the discrepancy I'm talking about? Your walls are basically, looks a couple feet higher than the roof height on the glass structure.
Yeah, the structure does pop up slightly above that point, but the maximum height is 45 feet to that peak, to that point.
No, my point is that your glass structure is taller than the permanent structure that houses the stairwell, the bathroom, the brown structure right next to it. Yeah, that looks like it has a 10-foot height, and your glass structure looks like it has, the walls are 12, 13 feet high.
Unless the two-story foyer is taller, and that's what's
Yeah,
stored
'cause
out.
what that's showing is, so it matches what I described as the 39-foot eave. You see the roof height there is 38, pointed to the top of that third floor piece, right? So our eave line is up a foot from that point. The max peak is at 45, and then the midpoint would be at 42. So that's what we're trying to, if I was off on my second floor height, that could have been, but
Well, the third floor is all one level, right? There's no step up into any area.
yeah, the way that's built is, I mean, there'll be a structural layer, and then there's that pedestal system that I mentioned. We have pedestals that get, because you can't walk on the rubber roof membrane. There's going to be some kind of tiled surface or whatever, maybe a Trex membrane, Trex decking or some type of tile surface. So we have a buildup of that. So those exact floor-to-floor heights, will get fleshed out as we go through design development of the building. But generally speaking, the peak we're 45 feet is our max peak on that point.
Yeah, I'm just talking about the floor level of the third floor, where you have all the terrace area, and then you walk into the glass structure. That's just a harmonious, flat floor?
Correct, yes. Sorry, to answer your question, yes, that would be a floor, because from an ADA standpoint, we would have to have them aligned.
Okay.
We can't step up into that, or we need ramps.
And so if you look at this view, if you look at the structure that has the storage and the bathroom and the stairwell, that brown structure is, from your drawing, showing 10-foot height, correct?
Yeah,
The roof height to the third floor.
That third floor is showing 28. That's showing a roof height of 38, correct.
Right. Right, so then you go to your glass structure, go back, please. Yeah, now if you go to your glass structure, the corner of the glass structure looks, the wall structure, the gate, not the hip roof point, the wall structure looks 2 to 3 feet higher than that third floor roof height.
The intent is for that to be a foot above that point.
Okay,
So wouldn't that make it 11 when you said the base height was 9?
In all aspects, the eave height of that intended structure is to be 39 feet. The peak would be 45 with the mid at 42. That's the intention.
We're not talking about the roof. He's asking a question about the base perimeter of that glass structure. What is that base height? The lower glass with the transom on top of it, what's that overall height?
The intent is for that to be 9 feet above that point.
But if it's taller than the brown structure and the brown structure's at 10, how is that possible? Right? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, exactly.
Can we, Summer, can we flip through? I want to see the section that I had in our presentation too.
Even
There you go, there you see it, yeah. It's up higher.
Would you prefer your presentation,
Yeah, I mean,
Jeff?
what I think we may have mislabeled, and again, we were working through, we may have mislabeled the floor heights independently, but I just want to state that the intent of that structure, like this drawing shows, the intent is to have that eave set at 39, the peak at 45. If our other levels above that adjust to do that, like the peak is the peak, we can't go anything above that. 45 is our cap. We're asking for that 45 height. What we're suggesting is that the midpoint is 42 and the eve is 39. The other levels there's nothing in the ordinance that states those levels have to be this or this. There could be some adjustment as, like I said, as we get into design development with the building, those might fluctuate a little bit based on structure, based on mechanicals, based on things like that. But what we're asking for is that conservatory piece. So I think I understand what you're saying. It's higher than that piece. But regardless, we may have to pull, we're not asking for relief for that third level piece. That can fluctuate. We're just suggesting that and that'll have to be lower then to match the intent here. That'll be lower than that.
Well, my question is what that height is, because there's a lot of dimensions that weren't included in this, but in your hardship, you state that elimination of this element as we would have to reduce the eave height down to a point which would prohibit structural and HVAC connectivity from supporting third-level space. I don't understand how lowering the roof and the door and the entryway has anything to do with HVAC.
Oh, we have the flat roof piece up there, right? It's the third story piece. So again, it's not designed yet, but we're going to most likely bring ductwork from that space into that space to condition it. We may have to get into fin tube heating. There may be other elements to condition that, but we're trying to leave ourselves enough wiggle room if we have rooftop. So the very overall roof plan, we're proposing rooftop units that are screened back there. So those rooftop units will feed ductwork most likely into the third level of the rooftop space. The ductwork will travel then to the conservatory. So not fully understanding the structural thickness to support the roof structure for that piece beyond the third level piece, the flat roof piece, we're trying to make sure we have enough height to be able to get ductwork into that space, if that makes sense. If there's ductwork running through it, it's got to tie into that glass conservatory piece. So we're trying to make sure we have enough height to do that. We're talking about inches here in some of this case. We're trying to make both those levels work, understanding we have a 45-foot cap, understanding we want some articulation between the glass piece and that roof beyond. So that's where there's maybe some discrepancy in that, but overall, what we're looking for is 45 feet, can't go above that. And then we have that, like I said, the eve line at 39, the midpoint at 42. That's the intent, that's the goal.
So the structural and human access from the rooftop level, this is the part I just can't connect the dots to. You have access into all these other rooms at a lower height than you do this conservatory, and yet when you go over to this glass area, now all of a sudden you can't enter because of all these issues. It's not making sense that you can get into the lower height rooms, but you can't get into the taller height room.
No, you'll still be able to enter the glass volume from the other piece. That's the intent.
Exactly, but you're saying your hardship is by lowering the glass down, you said human access from the rooftop would limit human access to the rooftop level. But you've got access into all these other rooms. I'm not understanding the hardship.
Well, I think if we kept the peak, if the peak is an element, if we had to pull that entire peak down to the floor, that's 3 feet. If we had to pull that down, then there's no way we can gain access to it. We'd have to cap that peak to be a flat roof.
So another question. So there's no dimension on this. All I could gather this is roughly like 24 by 24, just under that.
There might be a dimension on there somewhere. I can't tell. It's in that ballpark.
It's fairly
the size
large,
of
but
like
you could reduce the size of that, and that would also reduce down required for the size of the roof peak.
Yeah, it's really a balancing act at that point. The corner, we're trying, if you look at the building as a whole, we have these various, we're trying to articulate that facade. So if you go to one of the renderings, you'll notice that we have that piece right at the corner. If that gets too skinny, too thin, it looks pretty anemic compared to the overall. So what we're trying to do is, have length along this piece, indent it a bit to make that corner stand out. So, and we did step the glass, and you notice it's not the full width. It kind of aligns with the glass within the tower at levels 1 and 2. So we're trying to pull that in so it doesn't look too big. We're also trying to make sure it's a usable space. So it's about the size of a modern family room, 20 by 20, 20 by 4, 24 by 24, along those lines. I don't know the full dimensions that we could look on the packet.
And I think it's already been asked, but is that a 612 pitch on that glass?
Does it state in the packet somewhere? It might.
It appears to be.
Range. Okay, it might be in that range. I apologize. I should know that.
And so what is the challenge to making it a 412?
Even if we do go down to a 412, we can't get down to 42 feet, even with that. It might reduce it slightly. We still can't get down to that height. If that's what you're asking, if we could go to 412, would it reduce the variance or eliminate the variance? It might reduce it a bit, but it wouldn't eliminate it.
Okay, and if you could go to the second to last page of the packet. Yeah, so if you actually scroll back up a little bit so you could see that, yeah, so you mentioned the corner of the Gassell building, and they've kind of done the same thing, but they did it with a flat top. So they've made that pronounced corner, bulked it up, and did it with a flat top, and was able to do that. So you had no proposal that you brought in that had a flat roof, or?
Unlike that, we're trying to utilize the space. So we're trying to have that space support our rooftop terrace. That's what it's doing. So the flat roof, when we studied that, if you can envision looking up into that space, you're going to see structure, you're going to see drywall possibly, maybe a skylight built in the middle of it, but I think it's going to look visually heavier. In this case, when it's all glass, you see it's transparent. You have some framing members, but it's more transparent, see-through, hollow. So if we're trying to use that space, which the InvestWise team wants to do as support for the rooftop terrace, the flat roof, I think, would make the condition worse. It might bring it down to the ordinance height, but I think visually it would make it worse, because I think you'd see more structure, see more weight, see more bulk. We're a bit more transparent. That's the intent. It's a hipped roof. It fades away optically, visually, optically, it fades away, and it's clear. I know glass isn't clear the way the light hits it, but generally speaking, it's transparent.
Thank you.
Thank you. Excellent questions. Thank you.
I'm going to go back to what he said, just because I think the numbers do matter. So if the second floor, or that third floor mass is 10 feet tall, and it appears as if the glass structure is taller and it's potentially 11, that matters. I know you keep saying, well, all that matters is we're asking for 45, but 45 is what the ordinance doesn't allow. We're asking for 42. So if you're okay with it being 9, and the renderings appear to be 11, because they're a foot taller than 10-foot ceilings that are adjacent to it, then we have 2 feet that comes out. So if we have 2 feet that comes out and we reduce the pitch, you don't need a variance. So I'm finding a challenge, because you're right, it matters, but your first floor is approximately 10, your second floor is approximately 10, that staircase, bathroom area is approximately 10. All the renderings reflect that structure being at minimum equal to at the base height, or likely a foot taller. So if I give you a variance and say that glass structure has to be 9, because that's what you're stating it is, it doesn't align with any of your drawings.
Well, generally speaking, if we go, even looking at the numbers, maybe we go back to this section that we have in our presentation.
Okay. And let's not talk about the 45. Let's just talk about what everything adds up to.
Oh, understand. And again, with the floor-to-floor heights, and there's some challenge there, because the building's in design, correct? It's in design. So we don't have a structural engineer on board. We don't have mechanical engineers on board to really vet out those spaces. We're using best practice, past projects to get a good understanding of our plenum heights. So what we're saying is we're trying to, at that 15-foot mark, that's a comfortable level for that structure. That gives us 5 feet to play with for ductwork, for plenum, for ceiling, and then rinse and repeat on level 2. So that gets us up into that 30-foot range. Could there be some flux? There could be flux with the rooftop paver system. Those pedestal systems vary, from 8 inches to 9 inches to 12 inches to allow water drainage below them. So there's a little bit of leeway with that. And we know we're going to have to iron that out when we get into design development. But what I'm trying to say, and I understand, you're correct, that the numbers don't jive compared to this drawing as you relate to the other drawing. But these levels, if I'm correct, we're not analyzing the height of first floor and second floor. To the overall, we are. But I'm going to bring up the 45 again because that's our control point, and we're not asking to go above that. We're simply asking to get a little bit of a peek on it. So I'm kind of backing into it a bit, but the numbers could flux a little bit with the floor-to-floors.
No, and I get that, and I think that's what we're saying. The city is saying the numbers can flex and make it work at 42. What I see is 30 feet to the floor of the glass structure. That means you have 12 feet to play with. That means you could have a 9-foot structure with a pitch in the center that gives you another 3 feet, which I think is what you're asking for, which comes to 42. I don't see the 45.
Well, if that's 30.
Yep,
and
you have
we talk
another
about
12 feet to go.
9, right? So that gives 42 is only 3 feet above that 9-foot point.
You can't do a 3-foot pitch inside that space?
I think it's going to be too minimal from a water, even on an asphalt roof, we're talking about usually 412 pitches a minimum in that case.
But an asphalt roof is an overlay of laying down asphalt. You're worried about ice damming. On a glass roof, like a metal roof, you can go to a lower pitch because you're not worried about ice damming. A glass roof does not apply like you're worried about ice building up, or all those elements are not relevant in a glass structure. I mean, have you been to the new RH in Birmingham that we're all very proud of?
Excited to, haven't been yet.
And they have a glass structure, and that structure is spectacular. And I believe it's a flat roof with angles off that flat. And it's beautiful, and it's, I love being able to look through a flat piece of glass to the ceiling versus being forced to look through angles, just my personal opinion. I just don't believe your presentation has demonstrated the inability to build what you need to build within 42 feet. Other questions, Mr. Hurt, sir?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, thank you. One of the things that I think we're kind of losing, the 42-foot midpoint of a regular gable. If this were a regular gable instead of a pitched roof, this would be conforming, correct? If we were to take the midpoint of that, like if it was just a regular gable, a two-pitch gable with a ridge down the middle, this would conform at 45 feet, right? Because the midpoint would be 42 or 42.6.
If it was a gable in lieu of a hip roof?
Yes.
Would that count somewhere if we were to do a gable there versus the hip? Do you still cap, are you asking if that?
Yeah, I'm just wondering,
Does it change?
the city of Birmingham, we calculate height of structure to the midpoint of it, but it has to be I don't think the ordinance mentions anything about the hipped roof, which it should, because a hipped roof is a lot less obscuring than a regular gable roof. I know you don't want to do a gable roof on that, but it's very good how you arrived at the 42 feet, because if that was a regular gable roof, the 42 feet, a 45-foot ridge height, a 42 feet would be where we'd calculate the height of the building. And that is at about roughly 42 feet. So I think whether you meant to do that or not, that's what's happened. And I think that a hipped roof, a pyramid roof, which, to kind of get the geometry of it, a pyramid roof is much less obtrusive than a gabled roof. And your selection is you have gone from a gable roof to a hipped roof or a pyramid on the top of this Zen room, which is very nicely named. But do you know what I'm saying? So my question, I get I'm asking is that how you arrived at the 42-foot or at the 45, knowing that 42 was the midpoint of a regular gable?
We thought that before we had a conversation with Summer and Nick, we thought that, because the ordinance, we've designed numerous homes around town, you name it, and we're always taking dimensions to the midpoint of structures like that, hip roofs, gable roofs, whatever you want to call it, gambrel roofs. I know everyone has a little bit of different equation, but the pure definition of the ordinance is to the midpoint. And, based on the fact we wanted the glass ceilings, the gable made it a bit more challenging, and as we alluded to in one of the slides, the gable's more prominent. It's going to look bulkier.
But that's, I guess that would be a question for you and for the building official, Mr. Zilke. Am I getting that correctly, that this is probably conforming if it's shown at 45 feet, if the midpoint is 42'6" or 42 foot even?
I think you're looking at it the right way, but I think being commercial might be the height overall at the 45, which I think Nick would jump in on that.
I asked that question at the beginning. Are we moving
Yeah,
to the?
that's what I remember,
But if it was
Mr. Chairman.
a typical house roof, yes, it goes to the midpoint of the roof, so that 42.
But I don't think the building height in the ordinance, I'd try to.
I can jump in here a little bit.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Nick and I, we've discussed this. It was actually when we first got the building proposed, I was like, aha, this is great. Like, there's a little bit of language here that might allow this, and then Nick and I went back and forth. So the exact verbiage in the zoning ordinance is for sloped roofs, the eave line shall be no more than 34 feet, and the roof peak shall be no more than 46. The issue here, the 46 is great. The issue here is the eave height. And so it was the interpretation that we had, and Nick, you can jump in and correct me if I'm wrong, that the eave of that peak would have to come all the way down to 34 feet as well in order to comply with the way that the ordinance was stated. So for the intention of having a commercial property that the entire roof is sloped like that, and it has the eave and the peak, there'd be no issue. Where we're running into this push point is the height may be under 46, but the eave line is too high. Does that make sense?
Yes, but see, if the eave line came down to 9 foot as they show now, then we would be conforming if 46, or if the eave line is a 9 foot.
It would have to be this point of the roof would have to come down
By how much, though? I mean,
to the overall 34 feet in height. So it would have to come down to probably aesthetically like right here.
oh, okay.
So, I mean, they could change up the shape if they would like. That could be an option, but as it stands, that's the pinch point with the ordinance.
I think what you're describing is when you look at the overall structure, we're not treating this as an individual structure. It's part of a much larger structure. So you can't just say, I'm going to measure to the midpoint on this protrusion of the roof.
Yeah.
That seems to be a stretch.
But I mean, even if you did the entire roof with a hipped roof, we'd have the same condition. So this is like, even though this is a.
Right, maximum height versus eave, the eave is much lower, would need to be lower. If it had to be 34 feet.
Well, then how is the flat roof allowed at 9 foot if the eave on the flat roof is 9 foot?
I don't know, is it?
Yeah, I mean, 10 foot, I mean, that.
I don't know.
I'm sorry, I'm just, I'm trying to learn this myself too, because I would think that that's how we would measure it, is by the midpoint of that highest point of the roof. That's still, even though it's a beautiful element, it is still a part of the roof. It's one part of a segmented roof. And I would think that's how you measure it. I don't know.
They can come in front of us later for an interpretation of the rulings of another board, but right now we have to go by, the city is saying this is the height, and then we have to find a reason why they can't achieve that
But
height.
my point is, I think it does say that, and I think what I just said is in support of, the ordinance supports what I just said, I think. But I don't know. That's why I wish if we could get I don't know if we can get an answer tonight. But
Yeah, I mean, we can postpone the meeting if we want to ask for another interpretation, but it sounds like they've done that. But I mean, I support, if this is within the ordinance, then they should get it. I saw Mr. Reddy had a question.
Briefly, I've got the same concerns that you've heard from my colleagues. Excuse my voice tonight. I clearly understand the lot issue. That's pretty straightforward. For us to make a variance, we really need to hear your unique and particular circumstances that would make this property unusable if we didn't grant you a variance, and I don't see it here. You can clearly have a beautiful building here without having a 45-foot roof. And, I understand, I've heard all your arguments, but I'd like you to sort of summarize why you think that there's particular circumstances here that would not allow you to meet that, to give me a better idea where you're.
I mean, again, if you break it down to a pure practical difficulty, we simply can't do the peaked roof if it comes down to that. We can't. It has to be, if it has to be at 45 feet, we'd have to pull that entire slope down.
42.
Yeah, 42, sorry. If it has to be at 42, to achieve our client's desired use of that space, we'd have to pull that whole thing down to get to that point. So at that point, the conservatory is pretty much unusable. The heights would be low.
Could you point out the opening? I've heard you refer that to Mr. Kona as well.
Well, if I can sort of point her.
I don't have one up here right now. I might be able to sit down here.
That, I could, not that tall, I could try to point to it.
Anybody have a stick?
Hold on.
Is it where the red and
I gotcha, my friend.
line?
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
So let me do my best to, I think it's,
I'll show you.
sorry.
While you're pointing, I'm going to have a question while you're pointing, because I think there's another element. When you're pointing, I'd like you to
Oh,
also.
sure. So, okay, so this is 45, right?
Right.
So we're saying is if a person this is the space, the conservatory, this triangular shape right here. So what we're saying is, we're trying to achieve a 9-foot height in here. And if we're trying to, our goal is to create the shape. We're trying to create some bit of prominence at that corner and make it a usable space. Gas house is not usable. I haven't been inside that space, but there's no windows up there. I assume it's more of a decorative element. We're trying to make it usable. So if we have to bring this peak down to 42, it would inversely pull this down to, making it, you can't get into it then at that point. Can we lower the roof slightly? I'm sure we could drop the pitch slightly. But like I said, when we tested this, when we explored it, this felt the best optically, visually. It gave some prominence to that point. Allowed for water movement, drainage. I know we can debate that, but that was the point.
Can you tell me the size of the doors that are proposed to enter that structure? Are they 8-foot doors?
Offhand, I mean, these could be 3-foot doors, so 3 foot,
I mean height.
9 feet. Oh, height, based on this, probably about 8 feet, give or take. They would have to be below the 9-foot eave line, so they'd be lower.
Right, it just seems like the eave is more than a foot above those doors. I'm having trouble without a dimension plan, that you state that it's 9, but it's taller than a structure that is 10 without the peak. I'm just having trouble understanding that. And I feel like if it were 9 and the pitch changed slightly, you wouldn't need a variance, but it doesn't look like there's only 12 inches from the top of those doors to the base plate.
That
seems-
and I don't know. I wasn't, again, the exact door heights aren't designed yet. We're still a ways from that. They could be 7 foot. I don't know. We don't have a dimension, so I apologize.
Right, but you understand that if each space has some flex, and the 5-foot space for HVAC has some flex, then why would we approve a 45, why would you give it a variance for 45 when you may only need 43 and a half?
From my experience designing numerous office buildings, we're not going to get this roof height really any lower than this point. With 15 feet floor to floor at these levels, with plenum space and a reasonable 10-foot ceiling, I mean, it could fluctuate inches here or there, but we're not going to pull it down 2 feet. It would get very challenging to make these systems work, to have lighting. If you look above the ceiling, lighting, ductwork, clearances, electrical going running through that.
I hear you, I just don't understand why you can't build a glass structure with the remaining 12 feet. That's the challenge I have.
Based on what we're seeing here, we'd have to pull these eave lines down low to get a pitch on it. It would have to be a flat roof structure of some sort, or I don't know how low we can go with the glass. I don't think we can go down to a 112 or 212 pitch and drain it properly, based on conversations we had. So it's a balancing act. Like I said, we designed the building, that roof area, thoughtfully. We were trying to get a bit of a patio space, but we were also, instead of pulling that 42-foot, if I jump back to, we could take this wall right here and move this thing all the way out to the Woodward front, then this whole thing would be 42 feet in height, and the building would just be a lot bulkier, a lot heavier. So we were trying, I know we're asking for relief, and from a pure letter of the law, hardship for that piece, it's challenging. I mean, we're saying there's challenges associated with it based on trying to connect the dots from this piece to this piece, trying to walk from this surface into this structure. It's challenging. We're trying to create a bit of presence at this corner. But we took a lot of care and a lot of thought to diminish the weight by pulling all this back. So the building optically appears lower from Woodward, from the sidewalk, while asking for just a 2.4% relief at this corner. And if
But architecturally, your intent of pulling that back was the relief from the front to make that tower more prominent, and to line it all up wouldn't have looked architecturally appropriate or even attractive. It would have looked like a solid wall. So part of pulling it back isn't a compromise of the 3-foot variance. It's the design to have the main structure be prominent and set back all the other structures off the prominent entrance. Isn't that really the intent?
It's a bit of both. It's a bit of both. Yeah, it articulates the corner a bit more, but in a way that we felt made the building look better and met the spirit of the ordinance. We're trying to align with the spirit. So again, pulling it down, we could try to squeeze it in a little bit. We're not going to pull much more to floor heights in this building and make it, a modern office building at this corner. We can't go to 8-foot ceilings in an office space. It's just too low.
I understand.
So we're trying to build in a little bit of flexibility for some of the unknowns because we're not designed yet. We don't have the bar joist depth. I don't know if it's a 24-inch duct or a 30-inch duct. So building in that leeway, it ensures success and ensures we don't have to come back here because we cheated our floor lines too low to hit a 45-foot peak. So that's what we're trying to do.
So let me ask you a question. Would you like to come back when you have all the engineering, which will, we can even vote on the width of the building, or would you like to proceed? Because if we proceed, you can't just come back. It would have to be a drastic difference from your request now.
I don't think we're in a position to do that based on purchase of the property.
Yeah, I think
You might.
Yeah, come up, yeah. You hear my offer. My offer is to allow you to come back because it sounds like you have some varying dimensions, and if you ask for 45 and you don't get 45, you can't come back for 44.
Back in Steve, one-
No, I want to hear from him,
I just
please.
wanted to say about the structure, because designing that, we wouldn't design the building with the unknown of the glass. Like, it'd be very challenging to have our engineers come on board to fully design those systems.
That's your choice. I'm just offering you an option, because if you hear the tone of the group, and the great thing is, it sounds like the tone isn't bad, although we haven't voted on the most important piece of the structure. But
you call it spectacular. Can we get back to that part? You said it was spectacular looking. I really like that
I
part.
don't know if that was my word, but it is beautiful.
I think it was.
I just don't think it has to need a variance to be that. But, so my simple question to you would be, if you continue forward and we deny the variance for the 3 feet of extra height on the glass structure, you can't come back with a foot lower. It's not hold on, let me finish. If you say I'd like to postpone that request and only vote on the width, I would be open to that. And then maybe you can get with your engineers and see whether or not you have the flexibility in these unknown systems and these unknown heights where maybe you don't need 45. I'd be willing to do that. Once we vote, you won't have that option.
I understand. I appreciate the laying it out that way. It's now or never kind of type thing. I get that. Unfortunately, I'm not paying cash for this building. It has been an extremely challenging 6 months because of the shape, because of the egress and regress. The bank, Oxford Bank, I'm right up against their approval right now. That's why we have the.
I understand it, and I get there's a lot to this. I guess the question is, how important is the structure at the height that it's designed with the information you've heard us kind of weed out, that this is an important element for you?
It's an extremely important element to me.
So would you like us to vote on it today, or would you like to postpone the vote on that particular element? And again, everybody else could say, I love it, and I don't care about 3 feet. So that's the dice you roll.
I'm hoping so.
All right, very good.
I appreciate your optimism.
Thank you. We don't have any more questions. That's all I needed. I understand what you're dealing with. We're solely looking at these 2 variances. All the other elements are not relevant. So I don't want to, I don't want you to have to waste your energy describing all the other pieces of it. We're simply looking at, there's an ordinance, your 2 areas are asking for relief, and that's all the information we can,
I
focus
just
on.
want to make sure that my clients are able
to get in and out of that and still have a, that design element of prominence and elegance and professionalism, and still having the doors and, if there needs to be a ramp for, walkers and wheelchairs, as the average person is over 70, that'll be coming there. I just want to make sure that there's.
I mean, that's between your architect and your engineers, and where you steal that space for the ramp based on its slope. Sounds like the previous question said that it was a roll right in, but I don't know, but I don't have any, can't provide input on that. And I'm not going to make any joke about crypto and having a glass structure and on the roof and all those things.
Yeah.
But I appreciate your point. We are slowly looking at these issues, and you've heard our concerns, and you can adjust accordingly once we vote, meaning how you design it.
The one question I have, if we are allowed to come back, from the team standpoint of financing the bank, if we had that time to come back, if we had our engineering team on board to assess, and we tightened up the sections that showed our structural depth is going to be 24, we should plan for a 24-inch duct, showing all the breakdown of those assemblies, showing that, look, either we do need 15 feet, or maybe we need 16 feet, whatever that number is, right? Or maybe 14 and a half can work. Would that ease your comfort level, or are you still
As builders and
comfortable?
architects and attorneys and everything that we are in this board, including the city, we will scrutinize that too, whether those spaces are reasonable for what you're proposing. So, no, having a new dimension version to confirm you need 45, we'll still scrutinize that, but if that's demonstrated, that doesn't mean you'll get the variance, because you have other options. You have the ceiling and the peak and the beauty of it and how spectacular it is not a need, it's a want. And we have to look at, is there something you could do there that's just as beautiful within 42? And that's the question we have to ask ourselves individually as we vote. So no, that doesn't necessarily dictate that 45 is well. Do we have any other questions for the appellants?
Can I mention that the appraisal,
It's irrelevant to us. I get it, I'm in real estate, everything you're saying is relevant, but it isn't relevant to our decision. All those things are important, and you have to decide based on that. But it isn't relevant, like we can't make a decision based on financial impacts, timing impacts, whether you're paying cash or getting a loan, whether or not the bank needs a completed blueprint to get the appraisal to close by January 1st. None of those things are relevant. We can't hear it because it's not relevant to our decision. I recognize all those things are potential for you, it's just not relevant to our decision. Thank you both.
Thank you, appreciate it.
So, in the audience or online, anyone not particularly affiliated with this appeal that would like to comment on this appeal? I don't see anything online. Do you, gentlemen?
No.
So I'll close public comment. Board members. Mr. Conisar.
I'd like to make a motion for appeal number 2530, 36977 Woodward Avenue. In regards to point A, for the street frontage, I wish to make a motion to approve. The special conditions for this lot and the unique shape of this lot definitely require some special consideration. As mentioned, this lot has been vacant for 60-some years. I'm sure it's been a challenge trying to find a way to build up onto this lot. And so the special conditions of this lot, as we discussed, would require some special consideration. And for that reason, I think for point one of the 4 points we want to cover here is applied. The unnecessary hardship, if we literally enforce this, would be unnecessary. I don't think it's contrary to the spirit of this ordinance to hold them to this frontage, and the substantial justice to this corner is obviously positive since it's been vacant for so long. For point B, I wish to deny that point. I have not heard any special condition applicable to this property that would require this ornamental aspect of the building. I think we've discussed both the very differences in the drawings that we were presented, differences in the heights that could have been proposed, differences in the size of the actual structure could reduce the height. There's so many different ways to approach this that may not have been what was desired, but are applicable and could be achieved to get a similar type of space. So for that reason, I don't understand the special condition that was presented and don't feel that it is appropriate to approve based on that. I think it will not result in unnecessary hardship for this appellant, as there are alternatives to creating a similar type space, not exactly like the one they showed, though. The enforcing this would not be contrary to the spirit or the purpose of the zoning ordinance, as we are trying to meet the conditions that the ordinance has spelled out. And I don't think that changing the design of that rooftop atrium would result in any substantial injustice. So for those reasons, I move to approve A and deny B.
We have a motion to approve A, deny B. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
I have a second. Do we have any discussion? Please.
Yeah, I can't support the motion because I believe that in terms of the denying Section B, I think that the height variance is really minimal. And I believe that it's also inconsequential, really, to the intent of the ordinance. And it provides a reasonable and I believe really desirable articulation for that gateway building. And I think it's a really positive element for the city, for the neighboring buildings and along the road. So for that reason, even though I'm certainly in support of A, I would also be in support of B. So I cannot support the motion as stated.
Very good. Any other comments? Mr. Hurt, sir.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, thank you. I will not support the motion as well. I think this building, again, I think the interpretation and the spirit of the ordinance is met with this 45-foot dimension. If you were to take the actual dimension from the midpoint of a gable, which I think, in my impression, that's probably it's probably a conforming structure, or within about 6 inches of being conforming. It's a very important feature for the city. This is the last building. Across the street is Manresa, which is Bloomfield Township. So as you enter the city, this will be the first building that you see. And one of the reasons why there's this height restriction is because they don't want to dwarf directly adjacent buildings. We have no building to the north and to the west, and we have Gassau building, which is just to the south, and that we don't want the building to, I wouldn't see the benefit of, we had several buildings coming in here that had towers on them about 6 years ago, and we wanted everybody to stop doing towers. So I think it's important that this building differentiates itself. It's an exceptional feature for the building. It is a gateway to the north, and I think as designed, it does meet the spirit of the ordinance. So that's why I will not support the motion.
Very good. Any other comments? Seeing none, we have a motion to approve A and deny B. Can we please call the roll?
Carl Cona,
Yes.
Donald Rogers,
Yes.
Kevin Hart,
No.
Richard Lilly,
No.
John Miller,
No.
Eric Morgenroth,
Yes.
Ron Reddy.
Yes.
I'm sorry, your variance is not approved. It was 4 yeses, 3 nos. Any other business, Mr. Zuki, that we need to discuss?
No, and I'm not sure if one that's online, if that is Susan. I was going to introduce her. I know she's down in Florida. But she'll be here for next month and introduce you at that point.
Very good. So we have a new alternate, and that's Susan.
Correct.
Very good. Any other business from the audience or on Zoom that anyone would like to discuss that does not reflect the cases we heard today? Seeing nothing, we'll close that, and we are ready to adjourn. Do we have a motion? Do we have a second? Second. There we go. We have a motion from, I think we know who it is, Lily and Kona, and we are all in favor?
Yep.
Aye. Opposed? We are adjourned.